Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Galaxies mocked human legends. Until our real warships appeared. The cold silence of the galaxy was pierced only by the hum of distant stars. On the edge of the known universe, a mining outpost known as Trellis Station had quietly disappeared. Its location, once a bustling hub for resource extraction, now stood empty, no transmission, no warning, just gone. The recovery team that arrived found only chaos. The station was dark, lifeless. Its once proud spires were now twisted metal and debris. Yet the most disturbing thing was the black box. Captain Mellon, a grizzled officer from the Galactic Council's investigation unit, stared at the screen in disbelief. The black box had transmitted one final message just before it cut off: they were human. The words burned into his memory, echoing in his mind, but even more unsettling was the tone. Whoever had left this message had been terrified. Mellon's fingers hovered over the control panel. The coordinates on the screen led to the edge of an uncharted sector far beyond the established borders. No one had been there in centuries. The Galactic Council's chambers were buzzing with a mix of skepticism and annoyance. To the assembled members, alien species from across the galaxy, Earth and humanity were nothing more than a fable, a myth, a bedtime story told to children to scare them into behaving. One by one, the council members laughed. Humans, a myth, the Iroh representative bellowed, a towering reptilian creature. You can't seriously believe this nonsense. There are no humans. No, Mellon turned to the screen, his heart racing. The symbols on the ships matched those in the black box, ancient Earth tech. The first transmission from the warship was received, but it wasn't a message. It was a simple image, a symbol that had been forgotten by time, the ancient symbol of Earth, humanity remembers. The message hung in the air for several long moments, the silence was deafening. The council could not deny it any longer. The myths, the stories they had all laughed off as mere fantasy, were real, and humanity was back. Across the galaxy, whispers began. The presence of Earth's warships was no longer a question of if, but when. The council was about to learn that humanity didn't just survive, they thrived in silence for centuries, and now they were returning. The room was deadly silent. All eyes were on the screen where the ancient Earth symbol glowed in a soft blue light. No, whispered the grill representative, his voice trembling. It can't be. This is impossible. The humans are a myth, they were erased. How can this be? He stood in the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. He'd known the moment he saw the signal that this was no ordinary threat. It wasn't a warning from a rogue fleet or a lost relic from the past. This was real, this was humanity. The time for denial is over, Mellon said, his voice steady but low. We can't keep pretending these are just stories. They're here, and they're not asking for permission. The rest of the council looked uneasy, but their arrogance was still apparent. The Ars Quo representative, a smooth-skinned being with large reflective eyes, scoffed. Let them come, the Ars Quo said with a sneer. We've seen what happened to their colonies. They were weak. Their technology wasn't advanced. What makes you think they stand a chance against the might of the galaxy's greatest powers? But Mellon's expression didn't waver. You don't understand, he said grimly. These ships, they've been in the void for centuries. They don't need to fight like we do. They're different. Their tactics, their technology, they've evolved in ways we can't even comprehend. The Iroh's reptilian eyes narrowed. Then why are they just sitting there? Why haven't they attacked? That's the problem, Mellon answered quietly. They don't need to attack. The room fell into an uneasy silence once more, the hum of distant machinery was the only sound. For the first time, the members of the Galactic Council could feel the weight of the situation. The presence of Earth's warships was not a random occurrence. This wasn't a stray signal or an unknown anomaly, this was a statement. Earth had been forgotten for too long, and now they were here to make sure the galaxy remembered. The Council's communication systems pinged again, flashing with an incoming transmission. Men swept it open, and the entire chamber fell still. On the screen was another image, the warships. The fleet had positioned itself on the far edge of the Council's space. Their massive forms were arranged in a way that could only be described as deliberate, almost strategic. They had come in perfect formation. But there was no message this time, no demand, nothing, just the ships, silent, unyielding, ancient. It wasn't until a series of encrypted messages were intercepted that the true meaning of the Earth ship's presence began to reveal itself. "Do you hear us now?" The message was clear and direct. The implication was chilling. For the first time, the Council had no answers. They had no strategy. They had no idea what humanity had become. They only knew one thing: if the warships were here, they had come to take back what was theirs. Hours passed. In the depths of the Galactic Council's headquarters, military officers scrambled to prepare for what they had no way of anticipating. A fleet of Earth warships, each far larger than any ship the Council had ever seen, had emerged from the shadows of forgotten space. Their forms were sleek and angular, yet unmistakably human in design. But the most disturbing part of it all was the silence. Unlike the bombastic, proud fleets of the various galactic powers, these ships made no demands. They didn't need to announce their arrival with cannon fire or grand speeches, they simply were. Their presence alone was a declaration. And as the Council convened once more, Melon knew that their arrogant belief in their superiority had just crumbled. "They're not like us," he said aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "We were wrong to think they were weak. They were patient. They waited." The room filled with nervous chatter, but Melon raised his hand, silencing them all. "We need to act, but first we must understand what we're dealing with. Humanity's return is not something we can fight off with armies. They didn't fight wars like we do." A tense silence followed his words. The Iroh, TK, and other representatives exchanged glances. Their arrogance had been their armor, but now that armor was cracked, and in its place was the raw, uncomfortable reality of what they faced. Suddenly, another transmission blared through the communication channels, interrupting the tense stillness, a human voice. It was clear, steady, and the words it spoke were simple but filled with meaning. "We've come for what's ours. You will surrender, or we will remind you what happens when you forget humanity." The galaxy's most powerful military forces, each more advanced than the last, had never faced a threat like this. The question wasn't whether they could fight back, it was whether they even understood who they were fighting. And deep in the shadows of space, a single truth was becoming clear: humanity had returned, and they were not the same. The Council had underestimated them. It had been a full day since Earth's warships appeared on the edge of Council space, and every passing hour increased the pressure in the command rooms. The Council military leaders now convened, staring at their screens in disbelief as the Earth ships seemed to do the impossible. Admiral Melon stood before the Galactic Council's war room. His sharp eyes scanned the live feeds of the battle unfolding. The Council had sent its largest fleet, a powerful assembly of starships designed for total domination, but their weapons had done nothing to faze the humans. Instead, the Earth ship simply glided through space, dodging every missile, every blast, and every laser. Even the most advanced tracking systems could not lock on, they were too fast, too unpredictable. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. When the missiles finally did make contact, something unprecedented occurred. The Earth ships didn't just absorb the blasts, they fed on them. Energy siphoned from the impact poured into the Earth ships, rejuvenating their power. It was as if they had turned the very weapons of the galaxy against itself. A barrage of fire rained down on them, but with each explosion, the Earth warships grew brighter, their engines humming with the energy of the very things meant to destroy them. "Impossible," whispered the Yukral Admiral, his voice shaking with disbelief. "They're ships, they're draining our energy." Melon remained silent, his mind working through the implications. The battle had only just begun, and he knew that the Council's forces were already being outclassed. The Earth ships didn't just avoid destruction, they turned it to their advantage. A weaponized deflection system was not enough to explain this. This was something else entirely. It's not just their ships, Melon said quietly. It's them. Humans don't just use technology, they adapt to it. Whatever they've learned in the centuries of silence, it's more than we can comprehend. They've come prepared. A nearby officer shuddered at the thought, eyes wide. Prepared for what? For war, Melon replied grimly, but not the kind we know. Across the battlefield, the Earth warships cut through the chaos like phantoms, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The Council's fleets had fired everything they had, but the Earth ships seemed to laugh in the face of it all. A moment of eerie calm followed as both sides regrouped, giving the Council fleet a chance to assess the situation. But when they looked at their scanners, they were met with a horror no one had predicted. A massive energy pulse, brighter than anything the galaxy had ever seen, rippled across space. It was like a storm, an unseen wave of destructive force. The Earth warships stood at the center, feeding off the pulses, their shields absorbing the energy like a living organism. And then the counterattack began. The Earth ships surged forward, firing beams of energy that seemed to disintegrate anything they touched. One ship, once invisible to the enemy, now appeared before the Council's fleet. Its weapon systems hummed with a deadly, resonating energy, and it unleashed a pulse of fire that tore through a dozen of the Council's starships in an instant. The shockwave of the explosion reverberated through the fabric of space itself. The once confident officers on the bridge of the Ars Quo ship scrambled in panic as their systems shut down, the blast wave destabilizing their shields. "What are they?" screamed the turret captain, clutching the control panel as it flashed red. "This isn't possible. No one can do this." Melon muttered under his breath. The rest of the Council watched, their faces pale and terrified. The Galaxy's most advanced weapons were nothing compared to the Earth fleet's raw, unrelenting power. And yet, the warships weren't even fighting at full strength. Every blast was calculated, every movement precise. It was almost as if they were holding back, waiting for the perfect moment to show the galaxy just how much they had been underestimated. On the front lines, the human ships didn't speak or broadcast any grand threats, they didn't need to. Their presence spoke louder than any words could. Each time a ship in the Council's fleet fell, it was as if the very concept of the Council's dominance was being shredded apart. "We are not your fiction," came the chilling voice of the human fleet commander through the encrypted communication channel. "We are not here for negotiations. We are not here for mercy. We're here to remind you that the myths were never just stories. We are the fire you never saw coming. We are the storm you cannot outrun." With that, the fleet's full power was unleashed in a single, earth-shattering wave. In the aftermath of the blast, nothing remained. The debris field stretched out for miles, the remains of once proud warships reduced to nothing but broken pieces of metal floating aimlessly through space. The Council's fleet had been decimated, and in its place, the Earth warship stood triumphant, silent, terrifying, invincible. Melon's heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't understand it. How had it come to this? How had Earth, once considered a myth, now brought the entire galaxy to its knees? The transmission cut off, leaving the Council in stunned silence. The reality of the situation hit him like a wave. The humans had never been weak. They had never been defeated. The Council had laughed at their myths, but now, as the Earth warships sailed through the stars, they were facing an enemy they could not understand, a force so ancient, so powerful, that their arrogance had blinded them. And it was clear the galaxy would never be the same again. A desperate call for help echoed across the galaxy, reaching the most unlikely of listeners, humanity's allies. The galaxy's greatest minds were beginning to see what the Council failed to understand. The Earth warships were not just weapons, they were a harbinger of something far more dangerous. And now, humanity's true power was beginning to unfold, piece by piece. The galaxy was reeling. The destruction of the Council's fleet was not only a military defeat, it was a catastrophic shock wave that reverberated across all corners of the galaxy. For centuries, the greatest minds of countless species had looked upon the tales of humanity with scorn. They had laughed at the stories, dismissed them as myths, and crushed the very idea of humans as a true force in the galaxy. Now those myths had turned into their worst nightmare. The Earth warships had left nothing but destruction in their wake, and the Council's response had been chaotic. The greatest military fleets in the galaxy had been reduced to burning husks, their proud ships scattered across space like broken toys. No one, not even the most seasoned warriors, had ever seen anything like it. But as the dust settled and the survivors began to limp back to their stations, something darker and more unsettling began to spread through the galaxy. It wasn't just the destruction of the fleets that terrified them, it was the silence that followed. Wherever the Earth ships went, they left no room for escape, no chance for negotiation. They did not seek peace, and they did not offer mercy. They did not even speak of victory, they simply were, a force of nature, unstoppable, unyielding. The myths of humanity were now undeniable. The stories were true. On the outskirts of the TK Empire, a council of military leaders convened to discuss their future. Admiral Soren, the same TK leader who had witnessed the battle firsthand, stood before the holographic war table, his sharp eyes scanning the current battle reports. The TK forces had taken heavy casualties in the recent clash with the Earth fleet, and their once proud empire was now in disarray. We can no longer ignore the reality of this threat, Soren spoke, his voice tight with frustration. We've underestimated them. These humans, they adapt to everything. They take what they learn and use it against us. I've never seen anything like it. We must rally our allies. Humanity will wipe us all out, said Captain Arca, a large, brutish alien from the Orv species, his dark, rocky skin seeming to shimmer with anger. If we don't unite, Soren responded, we'll be finished. We've already called for reinforcements from the Galactic Council. But it's not the reinforcements that we need, said another voice. It's understanding. We need to know how they're doing this. What gives them such power? They are more than just soldiers, they are something else entirely. What do you suggest, Admiral? Asked Captain Arca, his voice low and rumbling. Soren paused, eyes narrowing as he thought. We need to send a probe, something beyond our understanding, someone who knows humanity. We need a human perspective. The room fell silent. A human perspective, it was a risky move, but Soren knew it might be their only chance at understanding what the galaxy was up against. Meanwhile, aboard the Eldritch, Admiral Rhea Stark stood on the command deck, watching the stars unfold before her. Her mind was not on the battle ahead but on the future of humanity. They had shown the galaxy their strength, they had reminded the Council of their mistake. But now she had to make sure humanity stayed on top. Rhea turned to one of her officers, Lieutenant Kahes, who was standing at a terminal. Report, she said. The remaining Council fleets have scattered, Admiral. The Ars Quo have retreated into their home sector, and the TK have begun fortifying their borders. We've done damage, but we haven't broken them yet. Rhea nodded slowly. Good. Keep the pressure up. We want them to know that we're not leaving until we've made our point. She paused, her eyes narrowing as she sent a message to all their allies. Let them know this isn't about victory anymore. It's about survival. They have a choice, join us or be crushed under our boot. On a neutral station, light years away from the chaos of war, representatives from several lesser-known species sat in a room filled with tension. The warships of Earth were a topic on everyone's mind. No one dared speak it openly, but the fear was palpable. The Lyrae, a peaceful species known for their advanced knowledge of the stars, were the first to speak. We cannot allow this to continue, said Ambassador Ona, her sleek, silver form shimmering under the room's lights. Humanity has already shown they will not stop until they have destroyed every power in their way. The Council failed to stop them, interjected CRA, a representative of the Ilhora, a warlike race known for their brutal attacks. But there is something else. We know humanity's power is rooted in their adaptability. We thought their technology was primitive, we thought we had all the answers, but now they are destroying fleets with technology we don't even understand. His eyes flickered with concern. There's something more. I've heard rumors that humanity's true power goes beyond just their ships. They have weapons unknown, untested, that we don't even know how to defend against. If we challenge them again, we may not survive. A voice from the back of the room spoke up, trembling. We've heard of their legends, the ones where humans were capable of wielding impossible power. Are those myths also true? The room fell silent as the implications set in. The legends weren't just stories anymore, humanity was everything the galaxy had feared and more. Now it was too late for any of them to run. Back on the Eldritch, Admiral Rhea Stark gazed into the distance, her expression hardening. We've sent our message. Now, let's see who's brave enough to challenge us. Her voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the fury beneath it. The galaxy had dared to mock humanity, it had dared to challenge them, and now they would learn the price of underestimating Earth. The battle was not over. As the Eldritch cut through the darkness of space, Rhea Stark stood at the helm, gazing at the swirling stars ahead. The hum of the ship's engines was a comforting reminder that they were still alive, still moving forward, but her mind was elsewhere, on the war they had started, on the stakes of this fight, and on the truth that had been revealed to them all: the galaxy was not prepared for what humanity had become. She remembered the old Earth tales, the myths passed down through generations. People once spoke of gods and monsters, of warriors who could reshape the very world with their will, of an indomitable spirit that had driven their species to the stars. They were stories that seemed too far-fetched, too impossible for any real meaning. They were just children's tales meant to scare the young ones to sleep at night. But now those stories weren't myths. They weren't just bedtime horrors, they were real, and the universe was going to learn that the hard way. Rhea turned to Lieutenant Hayes, who was busy at the command console. "Status update on the remaining fleets," she asked. Hayes glanced at her screen, tapping the keys with swift precision. The TK have retreated back into their sector, the Ars Quo are regrouping near the Sidler Nebula, but their forces are fractured, and the Tithrans have withdrawn to the outer rim. It seems they're all waiting. Admiral Rhea's lips curled into a thin smile. They fear us. Good. But there was something else in Hayes' eyes, something that troubled Rhea. Hayes looked up, his gaze intense. "Admiral, there's a report from the front lines. There's a new threat." "Report, Admiral," Hayes began, but before he could finish, the entire ship jolted, sending shock waves through the decks. Alarms blared, and red lights flickered on the command consoles. Rhea gripped the edge of the console, her knuckles white as she steadied herself. "What was that?" she shouted. Hayes's voice was sharp and urgent. "It's a cloaked fleet, Admiral. The trick, they've managed to summon reinforcements. They're here, but there's something strange about them. They're different." "Different how?" A pulse of light flickered from the window, and Rhea's heart skipped a beat. A colossal ship, nearly the size of the Eldritch itself, materialized from the cloak. Its surface gleamed with a menacing red glow, and strange runes pulsed along its hull. There was no mistaking it, this was not a fleet built with conventional technology. It was something else, something ancient, something human. Rhea's voice cut through the chaos. "Prepare for battle stations. I want shields up, weapons primed. They're not just attacking us, they're testing us." The ship's crew scrambled to their positions as the tension grew palpable, with every soldier knowing what this meant. The Council may have underestimated humanity, but now even they were beginning to see just how far-reaching Earth's influence had become. Humanity was not only at war with the galaxy, it was now shaping the very future of it. The enemy ships began to position themselves, their weapons charging, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. But instead of retreating or fighting back immediately, Rhea did something that shocked even her crew. She ordered them to halt. "Admiral, we're under attack." "We can't just," Hayes protested. "I know what I'm doing," Rhea interrupted. Her mind was moving faster than her words. "Let them come closer. Let them think we're weak." As the enemy fleet drew nearer, Rhea's fingers tapped rhythmically on the console. She'd seen this before, the way the Council had expected humanity to crumble under pressure, to beg for mercy. But there would be no begging, no surrender. Humanity had evolved beyond that. The enemy fleet finally reached optimal range. The enemy commander, a ruthless Carrick warlord, activated a communication link, his voice crackling through the comms. "This is your final chance, human. Surrender, and we will spare your people." Rhea's eyes narrowed as she looked out the viewports at the incoming ships. She spoke into the comms, her voice as cold as the void outside. "There is no surrender. You've underestimated us for the last time." She turned to Hayes and nodded, the order was clear. With a single command, the Eldritch unleashed its full might. The warships, massive, dark, and ancient-looking, fired simultaneously, releasing a barrage of weapons that had been lying dormant until now. Waves of energy erupted in every direction, striking the enemy ships with brutal force. But there was something different about this battle. It wasn't just the overwhelming firepower, nor the strength of humanity's technology, it was the speed, the precision, the intensity with which humanity fought. It was like a primal force had been unleashed, and there was no way to stop it. As the enemy fleet crumbled under the assault, Rhea couldn't help but smile. She had made them see the truth, humanity was not just a myth, it was a nightmare. And now they had come to take their place among the stars. On a distant planet, deep within the council chambers, the leaders of the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Eldritch destroyed the last of the enemy fleet. One of the representatives, a once proud member of the Galactic Council, turned to his colleague and muttered, "We made a terrible mistake." The myths were true. The silence that followed was deafening. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson today, humanity was no longer a myth. Humanity was a force, and they would never again be underestimated.